Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and this is a breakdown of Moon Knight Episode 6, the season finale, in which Jake Lockley finally reveals himself to say Vaya con Dios. From Layla's new fit to, I kid you not, another verified KANG Easter egg, let us break down all the details that you missed in this episode. And this is your last chance to get a Moon Knight themed latest obsession shirt at newrockstarsmerch.com before they go back in the vault forever. Now, before the episode even begins, the previously on segment opens with Arthur Harrow firing his shots at Mark back in episode 4, gunshots that Jake Lockley will volley back at him in the final shot of this finale. Now, over the Marvel title card is Earl Grant's 1958 song, The End, with lyrics describing how things like rainbows and stories have finite ends to look forward to, but the speaker's love has no end. In the way that this episode that Marvel has suggested would be a series finale has since been changed to just a season finale, since there is obviously more of Jake's story to be told. And this music drifts away as we fade in on Mark.
At the end of a river, the water stops its flow.
Yeah, Earl sings the words, "At the end of a river, the water stops its flow," right as we see Mark bobbing dead in that water, and the audio mix works in sounds of crashing waves along the bank of a river, despite Mark floating in just this mere puddle. Just a cool way of linking him to Stephen's drowning in the sandy ocean. Harrow says,
"I'm sorry it had to be this way. Mark Spector, Stephen Grant, whoever else might be in there."
A little hint that there is indeed a third altar still inside that body, the one who will avenge these gunshots. And as Harrow places a scarab on his chest, Mark's Star of David necklace is visible, another reminder of how Egyptian mythology and the mysticism of Judaism in the covering of mirrors during the Shiva mourning periods are equally important to Mark, especially in his relationship to his own reflection. Harrow turns, seeming to hear Layla scuffle. And again, on his steps, the audio mixes in sounds of that crunching glass, which this episode finally drops the smoke screen on as Mark and Stephen see Harrow's true nature. Harrow proudly holds up Ammit to Shopti, and the followers kneel, another Indiana Jones reference in Raiders of the Lost Ark, when Belloc hold up the golden idol and all the men knelt, which Indy used as a chance to escape. Harrow's staff now transforms into an upgraded weapon, the left side crockhead bending over to form one large crockhead, leaving that back half as a blade. This whole thing transitioning from a balanced swinging pendulum of justice to something closer to an executioner's axe. Layla lifts the scarab from Mark's bloody chest, an early indicator of her final form this episode, the Scarlet Scarab. Harrow uses his staff to suck out soldiers' souls. Just interesting how these purple souls float upward, signaling how the underworld isn't beneath our feet, but similar to the MCU depictions of Valhalla when Odin floated off to it. It's a spiritual plane with no directional vector to get there. Taweret uses corpses to speak to Layla.
It's Mark who's telling you to stop. He's dead. And I'm talking to you through dead people right now. So what?
Yeah, the actor who plays that soldier, Ahmed Saeed, does such a good job matching Antonia Salib's hand gestures and demeanor as Taweret.
And you can be my avatar.
Harrow opens the pyramid to enter the chamber where the Ennead's avatars line up against him.
You won't believe what the gods have hidden from mankind. You're judges, not warriors. This doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, right at the end of the Avatar's bodies straighten up and their eyes roll back, showing that Harrow is fighting the gods in their human vessels. Yet, since Ammit is a beastly devourer, she is more hostile in combat. That fight goes unseen, but at the end of it, Isisa's avatar is left splayed on those steps, while Yetzil, Hathor's avatar, is frozen on the floor, her arms still reaching out, her fingers not exactly limp on her hand there, in a similar pose as the one Stephen was left in. So Harrow finally releases Ammit, voiced by actress Saba Mubarak, and I just love Ammit's character design with her crocodile tail snaking from thick braids from the back of her head, and the faint linen wrappings around her head and dangling from her snout, likening her to Khonshu, a deity also mummified, though she is not as weathered as he is. Whereas Tawaret's ears would always wiggle, here when Ammit looks right at the camera, the eye on the left twitches just a little bit, like a little crocodile wink. Ammit tells Harrow that his scales lack balance, which is something that she approves of, because that imbalance means that lying ahead of him is some service to her. And she says,
"I once relied on a servant whose scales balanced perfectly. In exchange, I was bound to stone for 2,000 years.
Yeah, the final avatar she's referring to was Alexander the freaking Great, whom Harrow hinted betrayed her to the gods. And now Ammit is suggesting Alexander's scales were balanced perfectly. So it's confirmed! In the history of the MCU, Alexander the Great was a successful conqueror thanks to Ammit, yet he was still great in his own heart. Layla releases Khonshu, who asks her to be his avatar, but she's like, nope.
You need a plan, little bug.
Yes, the way Khonshu called Steven nicknames like Worm, he does the same for Layla, which also foreshadows the way Layla uses an insect for her moniker as a Scarlet Scarab. And remember, the Forger explained how Layla's father called her his little scarab. Mark takes in the Field of Reeds.
It's so quiet.
Yes, the same words Dr. Otto Octavius says when Peter fixes him in Spider-Man No Way Home.
It's so quiet. Those voices inside my head, I'd almost forgotten.
Because it is a similar catharsis for these characters. An inner world that was once noisy has now gone silent. Mark goes back for Steven, similar to the Greek myth of Orpheus's journey into the underworld for his love Eurydice. Because this series' core dramatic relationship is the brotherhood and the love between Mark and Steven. It's a story of self-love and self-acceptance.
You are the only real superpower I ever had.
And so we get this sweet Anna and Elsa moment where they're one shared heart. Not their two hearts separately trying to balance a scale. Just one heart shared together is what moves Osiris to open his gate. Osiris, of course, being the Egyptian god of the underworld and of resurrection. So after passing through this gate, Mark breathes once more in the tomb.
Mark, I feel the pain inside of you. Do you want death? Or do you want life?
And in this montage, we flash back to that cave moment in Chicago when last episode Steven stepped on the bird bones in that memory, suggesting Khonshu did project himself in Mark's memory to help him feel less alone when he looks back on that traumatic event. And in this way suggests he was there at his side his whole life. His breakdown outside his mom's Shiva, obviously his possession, but also his marriage with Layla. And now the bullets hit the ground, this close-up evoking Neo's resurrection in the Matrix when all the bullets hit the floor. This time, when the wrappings encase his body, it happens more slowly. It's that gentle swaddling, like a loving re-embrace by Khonshu. And then his breastplate layer comes in significantly after, gushing outward in a heart shape. Mark and Steven negotiate with Khonshu, and Khonshu turns it from day to night, Mark leaping into the light of the full moon, his cape eclipsing it in a crescent shape. Layla lets in Tower It.
I would be delighted to accept you as my avatar.
Temporary avatar.
Oh, your father is going to be over the moon when he hears.
My father?
Yes, I met him when I took him to the Field of Reeds.
Yes, Tower It confirms that she did take Layla's dead father into the Field of Reeds. I like how she says over the moon. Just some nice wordplay for Layla and her family history being over and beyond the influence of the moon deity that's ruined their lives. Halo unleashes Ammit's judgment over Cairo, and his disciple Bobby preaches what is essentially the creed of Twitter.
Judge everyone!
And I love this. One of these pairings are cameos by Moon Knight director Mohamed Diab, who is judging executive producer Grant Curtis. All of these souls feed Ammit, who grows giant size, and I like how her braided tail pushes a truck and clears a nearby camp. Though it is not clear if the people of Cairo can actually see giant Ammit, and then later also see giant Khonshu, because episode 2 did establish that regular folk cannot see Khonshu kick the trash bin or see the jackal smash into stuff, and that these supernatural forms only present themselves to those they wish to see them. And also, we don't really see any reaction shots of the Egyptians looking up and going, holy shit, a giant crocodile and a giant bird skeleton. Now, harder than wrapping your head around all these details can be wrapping your head around the environmental impact of the electronics we use every day. A new smartphone represents about 175 pounds of carbon emissions and 18,000 gallons of water usage. So when that phone or that tablet, that laptop gets thrown away, it also becomes e-waste. And a great way to keep toxic e-waste out of landfills is by purchasing renewed electronics, and our friends at Back Market have built an amazing marketplace that offers expertly renewed smartphones, laptops, and other tech for a fraction of the normal cost. I have been using this sweet 2020 rose gold iPad Air from Back Market, and I love it. It looks brand new, it costs way less than buying new, and it didn't turn into e-waste. That's a sweet tablet. They're a quadruple threat at Back Market with focuses on price, quality, integrity, and trust. Each device goes through a rigorous testing process by certified professional refurbishers, plus they are up to 70% new tech, and they offer 30-day 30-day change of mind returns and a full-year warranty for any device. Plus, with Backmarket's new buyback program, you can also sell your old tech for cash. Use code ROCKSTAR and save $20 on your first purchase of expertly renewed tech. So break up with new tech and find your next device at backmarket.com. That's Backmarket, not Black Market. Layla emerges with her new suit from Tower Rent as the Scarlet Scarab, confirmed by Marvel. You can see the red Scarab insignia on her collar, and she unleashes Scarab wings. Now, in the Marvel Comics, the Scarlet Scarab is Abdul Faul, Egyptian villain to a group called the Invaders, which included Cap, Bucky, Human Torch, Namor, and Union Jack. This series has given us hints of this, with Layla's name being Layla Abdallah El Faouli, and that red scarab on her bandage in episode 4. Also, the closing credits of every episode have shown a scarab with her holding that scarlet-colored flare. Mark confronts Harrow, and I love how the frame rotates on the incline of the pyramid with the full moon behind them. Amazing shot composition and blocking, because Harrow has the high ground and only has to run downward, whereas Mark has the low ground and must run up, yet sprints at the same speed as Harrow and hits him with a powerful knee uppercut. The moon framing this all makes it clear that this round goes to Mark. Giant Khonshu fights Giant Ammit, right as Mark and Steven fight Harrow in an aerial battle. Now, despite the trope of giant CGI battles in the climaxes of many MCU titles, I actually don't mind it here, because as is often the case in mythology, the battle between mortals is a proxy for a higher tier feud between the gods. Layla saves Mark, deflecting Harrow's blast with her golden wings and crossing her arms, and then later saving a van full of people.
Superhero mo Sreya?
Yes, given how outspoken Mohamed Diab was about Wonder Woman 1984's depictions of Egypt, it's hard not to see all of this as an intentional dig at that movie and Diana's golden winged armor. And by the way, the graffiti on the wall behind the girl is Arabic, translating to Khonshu is alive. Throughout all this, I just love the fight choreography and the handoffs between Steven and Mark. Steven's baton getting deflected and then caught by Mark. And then when Steven is kicked across the alley, Mark's grappling hook shoots out of that dust. But it ends with Harrow pinning down Mark, then we black out. Whoa, so Jake Lockley obviously took over here, as he did in episode 3 with the thugs on the roof, and in the transition at the end of episode 2 when Mark suddenly found himself in the Egyptian hotel, and probably the violent blackouts when all those guys ended up dead in the Alpine village. Here, when Mark wakes up, he's nearly plunging that axe blade into Harrow's head, and in addition to Harrow's men now dead around them, there's also a bunch of flames that were not there before, cars wrecked and burnt, and that shop behind them, whereas before it was undamaged. Now the neon sign is mostly out and a fluorescent bulb dangles. So we still do not know what Jake's suit looks like or how powerful he is, but presumably this suit is capable of unleashing some explosive targeted shockwaves, possessing some kind of power beyond the healing powers and the weaponry of Mark's ceremonial attire. Actually, that third look might be visible for a few frames in the credits. Right before we flash to the hooded Moon Knight, another form with frayed mummy wrappings over the face, but with the eyes left exposed. That could be what Jake Lockley looks like when he takes charge. Layla and Mark use a spell to mortalize Ammit, but Mark cannot bring himself to execute Harrow. So Khonshu agrees to release them, we think. But Steven wakes up in Harrow's office where they now see the blood pooling from his sandals. The implication might be that Harrow's feet in the series were always bleeding, but Mark, Steven, all of us did not see it until now. Kind of like in The Sixth Sense, Malcolm sees what he wants to see. And that color red's true significance is not clear until it all comes into focus. But this office, I believe, is not real. Not like the rest of the hospital that we saw in episode 5. The hospital was their perspective of the Duat underworld ship. Rather, this room is their organizing principle representing their subconscious self-doubt. So last episode, they would suddenly teleport back to this room when one of them suffered a mental break. So this Ned Flanders is not Harrow, it's the embodiment of doubt that Harrow's antagonism represents for them. And now that they see Harrow as a bleeding mortal he truly is, they are no longer trapped under their doubt's control, they control it. So Steven says goodbye with showing both his closure with their mum, but also their departure from Ammit's spirit inside Harrow. And the final scene takes Mark and Steven back to where they were in their opening shot of the series, waking up in their London flat, once again listening to Engelbert Humperdinck's A Man Without Love. The tank now has 2 goldfish, reflecting Mark and Steven coexisting, the brothers learning to share. But they fall on their face once again, restrained by the ankle. This restraint and the fish, when you think about it, represented one altar keeping another altar trapped in a tank. And now Jake Lockley has really done that to both of them, what Mark had done to Steven. Now the credit sequence shows now a full moon, an evolution throughout the series, now symbolizing Mark's wholeness with Steven. But the post-credit scene shows Harrow in another psychiatric hospital. Actually, first we see a shot of a rubber ducky dressed as a doctor. Maybe a nod to him being a quack doctor in Mark's mind. The way Steven has always been surrounded by sand on this series, now Harrow sees sand in his coffee cup, but spills it, showing the kind of clumsiness Steven would show whenever he fell on his face getting out of his bed. But Harrow still has that tattoo, meaning this is the same real life guy from the before. This isn't in anyone's head. The nurse is waved away.
I beg your pardon.
Tranquila, señorita, tranquila.
Yeah, it is off screen, but Jake did something to woo or flatter that nurse. Like she doesn't know where to put her hands. Either she is awkward or smitten, just proving this guy to be a smooth womanizer who asked out Dylan back in the museum. Jake Lockley speaks Spanish, an update from the New York cabbie in the comics, and likely a nod to Oscar Isaac's ancestry, perhaps even hinted at by the Más Allá del Sol last episode, which now plays once more from the limo. But they wheel past this poster with a QR code. This is the same QR code that's been hidden in several episodes this season, but now when you scan this with your phone, the page that it takes you to has been updated to a 2019 Moon Knight comic in which Moon Knight faces Kang the Conqueror. Yeah, this is the second Kang Easter egg in Moon Knight after we confirmed Pharaoh Rama Tut on the jacket in episode 3. Now, Kang obviously did not appear in the series. They really didn't need him in this story, but still, this is a Moon Knight producers hinting that the history of the MCU's next big bad is connected to all of this. And who knows, Moon Knight or the Scarlet Scarab, Khonshu, Towerette may show up alongside Kang in a future MCU appearance, like Loki Season 2, maybe Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. We'll see. Outside this hospital, it's called Sienkiewicz Psychiatric Hospital, a nod to Bill Sienkiewicz, a comic artist who contributed so much of how Moon Knight looks. Rather than the taxi Jake drives in the comics, here he drives a white limo with Spectre plates, just like the ride Mr. Knight takes in the comics. Now, this might be nothing, but one of the men standing outside has the same long white hair as Crawley. I don't know if this is just an actor cameo or all of reality crumbling. Now, inside the limo, Khonshu's sitting in there wearing the fancy suit as he does in that same run of the comics. And he says that he was never interested in taking Layla as his avatar since his number one is the hidden altar Mark and Steven never saw, the one in the red sarcophagus, Jake Lockley.
Hoy te toca perder.
Wait.
Yes, we end on Frank Sinatra's You Are My Way of Life, a song about eternal devotion, like the devotion between Jake and Khonshu, a devotion hopefully we will see more of if we ever get a second season of this show. I want to thank you all for joining us in these breakdowns of Moon Knight this season. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA Voss, follow New Rockstars, subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching, bye.